Well, I first came to the Pilliga in 1993, working for a forestry commission, and I've been in love with the place ever since. To me, the Pilliga is the most important place in the world.
It's a wonderful place. It's so fresh, especially after the rain, the smell of the pines. It's lovely.
We've cleared 90% of the vegetation on the western side of the Great Divide. To be even thinking about knocking down the Pilliga for a gas field is insane.
Pilliga's the big jewel in terms of forests west of the Divide. It's the biggest area of temperate woodland, I think, in Australia. Biodiversity, incredibly high. It's a hot spot. It needs to be looked after.
My dad, when he was alive, he used to show us all the different things that we could eat, bush tucker and everything else.
All animals that drink and all animals that need an aquatic environment, this is where you're going to find them. This is being fed by a perched groundwater layer. The water table underneath the whole length of the Bahina Creek is only a foot below the level of the sand. We know Indigenous people used this particular species of mussel because it was the one found associated with Mungo Man.
As you drive through the Pilliga, you'll go from one soil type to another, and as we do that, we change the environment. And you'll go from black pine and gravelly ridges to ironbark to bloodwood to ghost gum, and all these are like different rooms in the forest. It's a place that deserves respect.
Santos is saying that this community here isn't an endangered ecological community, whereas the truth is that it matches all the requirements, and as well as that, it's an important surface groundwater ecosystem. This, to my mind, is a grassy woodland and it's an endangered ecological community as well.
When you go out and have a look at the Pilliga and you see that million wild acres, it's a beautiful forest, and it's one of the last wild places in Western New South Wales.
It is a unique place. It's something that draws you in. It's my home.
One of the reasons why Pilliga is so special is because it does have an Indigenous native mouse. And the Pilliga mouse has quite specific habitat requirements. And where the gas field is, it's actually covering about a half of the known range of where this animal lives.
We do have one of the highest loss of species in the planet, and it's largely driven by vegetation, fracturing and loss of the habitat that follows that.
They're planning to put 600 kilometres of roads out here.
There's three threatened fauna species which will be most affected by what's being proposed by the gas field, and that is the Pilliga mouse, koala and the black-striped wallaby. Pilliga mice are very cover conscious. Just a barrier like a road could be an insurmountable barrier for a mouse like that because their main predators at night are owls. The mere fact that they're opening up the forest to all this infrastructure and tracks and putting all this checkerboard style pattern of disturbance through the forest, that's going to help the feral predators.
They always say it's no more than a tennis court size, but you can clearly see it's absolutely huge.
Have a look at chinchilla, have a look at Texas. It's like a virus. They come in, spot, 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 and then it spreads like measles.
People come here and they don't know where the water is, but where the major creeks are, it's only a couple of feet below the surface.
The general public believes because the coal seam gas project is predominantly in the forest that it's not impacting on land that's used for productive capacity. What they're not understanding is that this is an extremely biodiverse resource. This biodiversity is important to allow the productive capacity of this area. So if we lose the biodiversity in the Pilliga forest, it will have impacts on the broader catchment area being able to continue farming. So that's one value.
When I first came out here, and the very first day I even went to the Pilliga 20 odd years ago, I stopped at a creek and I looked up into the tree and I saw 5 koalas, and I thought, This is a really good place.
We've had an ecologist study look for koalas in the Pilliga, and they are still there, but they're in diminishing numbers. So to have an industrialised gas field in there with all the risks to koalas of traffic and increased risk of fire and less access to the water that they do need, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to survive.
When I said where the Pilliga has many rooms, each room's got a different species. So if you look in here, for example, that's an ironbark area, right? And further down this, we're into quince country. And you'll go along another area, it'll have cypress pine or black pine. There's areas in the Pilliga where it's all ghost gums. There's a wedge-tail nest up here if you're interested. What I find is appealing about the Pilliga is if you sit and listen and they're dead still, the whole place comes alive with birds.
So it must have been dead quiet after the fires.
Very, very quiet.
So do you feel that's all endangered if this industry goes ahead?
Silence certainly will be.